Songs of Surrender. 40 seminal U2 songs re recorded and reimagined, just released yesterday, March 17th, 2023. I listened to the whole thing. I thought about each of these 40 songs and how they've been re recorded here, and I want to talk about it now with you guys. Before we get started, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and let's talk about it in the comments. All right, it sounds like despite the stripped down feel, they put a lot of work into this. Initially you might think, oh, this is going to be kind of like U2 Unplugged. And it does feel like that in a way, but they obviously put a whole lot of work. If you read about the backstory of this was a long time coming. This was not just like one live session. So it's different from a normal Unplugged album in that way, because a lot of the times the old school Unplugged albums were in front of audiences, stripped down performances. This is like, we're going to do these in more intimate arrangements, but studio wise, it's all in the studio. Um, so, that has to be said out of the gate so we understand kind of what's going on here production wise. The good, the bad, the interesting. I just can't imagine songs like Pride, Where the Streets Have No Name. I still haven't found what I'm looking for. One, I can't imagine them being any better with the unplugged arrangement. They're already perfect as is, and I don't get anything new from the arrangements here. They just feel like lesser versions of these iconic tracks. Um, I hate to say it because it's a nice idea, I guess, to try that, but I just don't get anything from those particular tracks. Some of these bigger ones, right? Like, I mean, how can you possibly improve upon the original recording of Pride? It's not possible. It's just one of the greatest things ever recorded, right? I would say the same thing with Where the Streets Have No Name and One. Like, you can't improve upon those versions. I've heard different versions of them. There's different versions of One from the studio from that era that exist, and they're fine, but they're not any better, right? The one that we have is the best, and it's so iconic that you can't improve upon it. So, I wish they hadn't gone down that road. The best cuts are the ones that bring something out new in tracks that weren't quite classics, at least not like, these sort of ubiquitous classics that are everywhere, right? Um, if God Will Send His Angels, Stories for Boys, Two Hearts Beat as One, even 11 O'Clock TikTok, Bad, these are all pretty well known. If you're a U2 fan, you know these songs. But the arrangements here, like, I found them like startlingly great, right? Like, these songs sounded brand new in my ears as I was listening to them, and I love the original versions of all of those songs, right? 11 O'Clock TikTok is one of the coolest like post-punk songs I've ever heard. But it sounds really great here. Stories for Boys, wow, what they did with that, like making it sound, using that sort of like early, echoey piano thing that Edge would do a lot back in the day, like in their earliest recordings, using that for Stories for Boys, which was a big rock song before. Man, that sounded really cool, and you're really able to hear some of the lyrics much more clearly here from Bono, which I really like in those particular cases. So there are some songs where this particular approach seems to work really well. Um, I also really liked what they did with the Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience tracks that are here. I think those tracks actually sound a lot better in these stripped down forms. I've never, those two albums I've never really been big fans of. I do like Songs of Innocence somewhat. Songs of Experience, my least favorite U2 album. But the Songs of Experience that were here, like, I actually like them in this kind of stripped down version. You can get to the melodies. They're just so glossy on there. They're so glossy on the original recording that it was better to hear them in this sort of way, and just get kind of a stripped down take on them with all the extra studio stuff being thrown in, like it was on the album itself. Every Breaking Wave is such a beautiful song, and I don't hate the studio recording found on Songs of Innocence, but it does feel a little bit on the glossy side for such a beautiful song, and it's one that really lends itself really well to kind of this intimate approach. It's been done before by U2, the intimate approach, but it really sounds great here as well. So that was another aspect of this collection that I really enjoyed. I don't think there was anything from No Line on the Horizon, which I'm kind of bummed by. I think there maybe were a couple of songs that could have been really cool if they picked that off, and they seem to pick something from every other album. I don't think there were any missing from that group. So a little bit of a bummer not to hear some of those. there's also maybe it would have been cool to hear some kind of like lesser known B-sides rearranged here. I think of like, again, taking songs that you just can't improve, recordings you can't possibly improve upon, like Pride, Where the Streets Have No Name. I wish they had, instead of doing those, they had done like some lesser known tracks and tried to recover those and be like, if we could have that as a do-over again, then here's how we do it. Because I think of this as like, if we had it to do over again, maybe here's how we do it. And you just can't do over those particular songs. Pride, Where the Streets Have No Name, one. You just can't do them over, or do them over again. All right. Overall feel. So overall, it does have a little bit of a Bummersville kind of feel to it. And I think it's because they try to do this intimate sort of approach to it, this unplugged sort of approach to it, but they did it in the studio instead of doing it in front of an audience where people can kind of like get into it and you still feel the energy of the audience. So even in like kind of the stripped down, unplugged version, you've got the audience right there and you feel their energy. They're applauding at the beginning and end of each song when they recognize what a song is. I think that would have been really cool to hear that. To hear that sort of approach, and U2 unplugged in front of a studio, in front of an audience. So I don't know, maybe somebody wants to go back and add in like, the canned applause or something like that to some of these songs to make them sound a little better. Overall, I feel like if you're going to buy this, it's probably for collectors only. There's nothing, like I own a lot of U2 albums. I own a lot on vinyl. I'm not going to go out and buy this one. It's just, it's not for me. I'm just not that level of collector to buy something that, I'm probably never going to listen to on vinyl itself. So for me, it's for a collectors only collection. One other thing I want to say, I really don't like it when Bono updates the lyrics for these songs. I don't have a problem necessarily with the content of any of the lyrics. It takes away from the songs to me when he tries to update them with more relevant lyrics. Again, it's like I heard a great saying once in regard to another band and them going back and kind of fooling with the mix on an old album, and they went ahead and did it, but they said the funny thing they said was like, you shouldn't mess with the space-time continuum, right? This idea of like from Back to the Future going back in time and messing with things, it can cause you problems, right? It can cause you problems. So, it's like sometimes you just have to say to yourself, like, these songs are what they were, and we might want to change the lyrics to them, but the lyrics are kind of written in stone for a lot of in our fans' minds at this point. And with Bono already having the penchant to maybe be a little bit preachy, you kind of roll your eyes when you hear some of these things and you're like, oh, well, I know he's speaking very directly and on the nose to this particular thing. Again, it's not like I have a problem with any particular issue that he brings up or anything like that. It's just, I don't like the idea of updating these old lyrics to, match what's happening now. Last thing I'll say, I really love that they ended with 40. 40 is another one that has a great arrangement here. I love the original recording, but it just sounds fantastic in this more sort of intimate setting. To this day, 40 is still the best closer they've ever written. It's their best closer on any of their albums. It's really the one time they're not very good at closers. That's one thing about U2. As great a band as they are, they're not very good at the album closer. Nowhere near a band like Radiohead, which just always like somehow manages to nail the dismount from an album. U2 not very good at it, but 40 was the one time they really nailed it, right? They nailed the dismount. It was like, perfect 10 landing, in the Olympics and gymnastics, right? Boom, nailed it. They nailed it with 40, and it sounds great here again. So it's cool that they ended there, and I guess appropriate since it's a collection of 40 songs from their past. All right, well, those are my thoughts. What do you guys think? Let's talk about it in the comments. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching. Talk to y'all next time. Bye-bye.